Hey guys, Mike here from Movie Nation.
And today we're going through a 2017 drama movie called The Skin of the Wolf. The opening scene shows Martinon, a huntsman, waiting patiently in the snow with his sniper rifle. Soon afterward, a deer walks by and Martinon fires a shot at it. The deer manages to walk away with a gunshot wound, but Martinon follows the deer till it falls down after suffering from excessive loss of body fluids. Martinon takes out his knife and finishes the deer off. Later on, Martinon drags the deer home. He makes a fire to keep himself warm before going to sleep that night. The next day, Martinon prepares himself a breakfast of delicious meat. He picks up his bear traps and makes sure they are all in good condition. Martinon then goes out for the day's hunt. Later that night, Martinon sits down alone beside the fire he built to keep himself warm and thinks about life. The following morning, Martinon packs up to go into town so he can sell the hide of his catch. Upon getting to town, he visits a bar owned by a man named Severino, and Severino sends for the attention of the mayor at once. Severino serves Martinon a plate of food and asks him if he is able to cope at his place. Shortly after, the mayor arrives. He argues that the price Martinon is willing to sell his goods is too much. After having a brief argument, the mayor decides to buy the skins. After the departure of the mayor, Severino asks Martinon if he is not having any wolf issues, and he says no. Severino says Martinon should get a dog, but he refuses. Severino then tells him to get a wife because if he suddenly dies, all he has worked for will be taken by a stranger. Martinon considers the suggestion but points out that the conditions of his life in the mountains are no place for children or a wife. Upon leaving the bar, Martinon visits the blacksmith's workshop to purchase new pairs of bear traps. On his way out of town, Martinon makes out with a local woman, Pasquala, and considers her to be a suitable wife. Later on, Martinon goes to make a deal with Pasquala's father, Ubaldo. He expresses his desire to marry Pasquala and Ubaldo agrees. Soon afterward, Pasquala joins Martinon in his house located in the mountains. Martinon starts showing her how to do things to survive in the harsh weather. At night, Pasquala will change the firewoods and lay the bed. Martinon once asked Pasquala to get woods in the night and she did. They always do the adult thing every night. One morning, Pasquala can be seen coughing as she cuts firewood. She then goes inside to inform Martinon that she is pregnant. Martinon looks at her weirdly but doesn't utter a word upon hearing this. Later on, Martinon constructs a baby crib. While working on his hides, Pasquala asks Martin if he has ever thought of leaving the mountains to live in town. She adds that something bad might happen to them because the place is vulnerable to wild animals and the weather condition is not pleasant either. Martinon tells her that she will soon get used to living there because he did too. He then adds that everything is better since he is not alone. He refers to Pasquala and the baby. Up next, Martinon is setting his traps in the woods. He stands up and looks back to see a wolf staring at him. Martinon slowly brings out his knife and takes a defensive pose. Just then, the wolf starts moving away and this prompts Martinon to bring out his rifle. Upon getting home, Martinon finds Pasquala laying down on the floor unconscious. He quickly rushes over and helps her up. Martinon starts caring for Pasquala, who is suffering from an illness. He puts a wet towel on her forehead to reduce her body temperature. Soon afterward, Martinon is preparing a meal when he hears Pasquala crying softly from pain. Martinon goes over to her and comforts her. Martinon can be seen worrying as he paces beside Pasquala's bed because her condition is now worse than ever. Sometime later, Martinon is tending to his goat outside. Meanwhile, Pasquala is in child labor and she soon gives birth to a stillborn. She dies in the process due to an illness that has already affected her deeply. He starts digging a grave to bury the bodies but soon bursts into a fit of anger and begins knocking down the headstones on the older surrounding graves of the graveyard. Martinon then wraps Pasquala's body on a white sheet and buries her. The following morning, Martinon digs out his wife's and the baby's body. He places it on a cart and drags it into town. He then drags the body to Ubaldo's house. Martinon accuses Ubaldo that he knew that Pasquala was pregnant for someone else, but he went ahead to marry her to him. Ubaldo concedes to the accusations and says Pasquala is a widow and he didn't want the people of the town to embarrass her so that her reputation would not be ruined. He adds that if Martinon was in his shoes, he would have done the same. Martinon returns to his home and continues to live his life waiting for spring to come so he can go back to collect his money from Ubaldo. Fast forward to next spring. Martinon goes to Ubaldo's house armed with his rifle. Upon seeing him, Ubaldo runs inside and Martinon follows him. Ubaldo then offers Martinon his youngest daughter, Adela. He says Martinon is free to marry and take her with him. Martinon stares at Adela and accepts the offer. Martinon and Adela get married the next day. After the wedding, Ubaldo apologizes to Adela for the impromptu wedding. He tells her not to run away because if she does, Martinone would hunt her down and also come for him too. He then gives Adela a piece of red clothing and tells her to make use of the contents inside if she cannot bear the pain any longer. Martinone and Adela leave on their journey to his house in the mountains. As they go, Adela looks tired and stressed, forcing Martinone to stop and give her water. Later that night, they arrive at Martinone's home and they soon go to sleep. Martinone and Adela can be seen going to the woods together to hunt, but she looks tired and exhausted. Martinone makes out to Adela that night. She screams, but Martinone doesn't seem to care. The next morning, the couple can be seen working on the plantation outside. Some night later, Martinone informs Adela that he will be gone for trading for 4 days. He tells Adela that she will soon get used to life in the mountains. He adds that when he is back, he will teach Adela how to set traps and hunt properly. Adela tells him to greet her parents for her and he should tell them that she is doing fine. The next morning, Martinone warns Adela to be careful because there are usually snakes coming around this time of the year. He shakes his head at Adela and takes his leave. Adela, who is now alone in the house, starts taking care of the goats. She walks around the house and discovers 2 open graves. She goes inside to sit and cry alone. Days later, Martinone returns and Adela serves him a nice meal. He gives Adela a present courtesy of her mother. Adela asks about her father, but Martinone says he didn't see him. Martinone makes out to Adela that night. The next morning, Martinone looks from the window and sees Adela smoking a deer. He thinks to himself that she is learning. Later that night, Adela confronts Martinone about the graves she found. Martinone says they are just holes, but Adela gets upset by his reply and starts to walk away. Just then, Martinone tells her that Pasquale's death was her father's fault. He informs her that Ubaldo traded Pasquale knowing she was sick and pregnant. Martinone also tells Adela that Ubaldo did the same trade with her. Adela calls Martinone a liar and walks away. The following day, Martinone observes Adela staring tearfully out into the distance. Later on, Adela discovers she is pregnant as she looks at herself in the mirror. Though Martinone shows no verbal or facial reaction, he prepares a baby crib and makes breakfast for Adela in the mornings. Martinone also begins to reduce any strenuous activities for Adela. One day while cleaning a wolf's skin, Adela becomes frustrated and resolves to poison Martinone's food with the herbs her father gave her. Martinone returns home and unknowingly eats the poisoned foods and soon becomes sick, throwing up daily. Adela appears pleased with herself and decides to run away while Martinone is out hunting. Martinone looked weak while hunting because of his illness and couldn't make a kill. While running down the mountain, Adela steps on one of the traps set by Martinone and screams in pain. This prevents her from properly running and walking. When Martinone returns home to find Adela gone, he immediately searches the ruined buildings of the town. The next morning he follows Adela's tracks and discovers her passed out under some fallen trees. Martinone then takes Adela home to nurse her back to health. While wrapping the unconscious Adela's frost-bitten feet, Martinone discovers that Adela has suffered a miscarriage. Up next, Adela becomes strong enough to walk around the house. Adela sorrowfully tells Martinone that she lost the baby. Martinone is quiet, as he is already aware. Martinone tells Adela that once she fully recovers, she can return to her family. When Adela asks why, Martinone only replies that the days are shorter so she'll have to leave early. Adela shows a mix of happiness and remorsefulness while standing outside alone, and she eventually leaves. Martinone is left alone in his home. He soon discovers Adela's hidden canister of poisonous herbs. Martinone stands outside silently crying to himself while staring out into the distance. He rocks the baby crib he constructed as he cries. The movie comes to an end with Martinone in bed looking up at the ceiling alone in his house while the darkness settles around him, with his rifle by his side. As the scene pulls away, the door to Martinone's house has been left wide open to a cold, snowy evening. Thanks for watching, guys.